A man was walking through a park and meanwhile, a couple was walking behind him. The other man was telling the woman that he was in love with her and that he didn't know what he could do if he wasn't by her side. At that moment, the man turns around and realizes that the woman was his girlfriend. She is surprised by that and then tells the man that she could explain to him what was happening. She gets scared and then the other man asks who that was. She doesn't know what to say, but the man tells her that she doesn't have to worry about it, because he was going to tell the other man who he really was. He says that the other man didn't need to worry about him as he was just a friend of the woman. The other man then greets the man and tells him that he was the woman's fiancé. He says that if the man was the woman's friend, he could also consider himself a friend of his. The man then says that she hadn't told him that she was marrying someone. The other man then says that they would still be late to get married, and then the man apologizes and says that he was happy that they were together. The other man says that the woman should thank him for everything he had done for her, because when they met the woman was very sad and was even thinking of going back to her mother's house. The man says he was glad to hear that. He then asks if they had been together for a long time. The woman says they didn't need to talk about it, but the other man then says he wanted to talk about their relationship and says they had been together for 2 years, but that they had been engaged for a year. The man then says that he was very happy that they were okay together and that she seemed to be a person who respected him a lot. The other man says that he was very happy with the woman as she would never cheat on him. He then asks the man why he was holding those flowers, as they were very beautiful and seemed to be for a very special person. The man says that they were for a special person, but that this person had made him very sad and that he would not give them to her anymore. The other man says he was sorry to hear the man's sad story. He says that soon the man would end up finding someone else for him. The man says that he didn't care about it anymore and says that he would deliver the flowers to the woman as she was very fond of flowers. The other man says he didn't know the woman liked flowers. The other man then tells him that he would not accept the man's flowers, but that he would accept only on one condition. He says he wanted the man to be with them and asks if the man wanted to go with them, have a cup of coffee, but the man says he didn't want to disturb the two of them. The other man says that he wouldn't be getting in the way of anything, as the best time they spent together was at night. The man then laughs at the situation and the other man says that they could spend a good time together. He then tells the woman that she was very shy and says that it must be because she hadn't introduced her friend before. The man then says that the woman was very shy since her school days. He then asks if the woman wouldn't mind him going along with them and the other man says he wouldn't have any problem. She then said that everything was fine and that the man could go. The man then says that if they didn't have a problem with that, he would go with them. The other man says everything was fine and so they head over to a coffee shop. The man then picks up the flowers he was holding and throws them on the ground. Later, they arrive at the other man's house. They were talking about marriage. Another man then asks the man if he had known the woman for a long time. He said yes and that they had known each other for a long time and that was why he knew a lot about the woman. The other man says he was impressed by it and then the man asks if another man knew any of the woman's relatives. The other man was going to say something, but the woman tells him not to say anything about it. He then says that he wanted to talk about his mother-in-law, who was a very amazing person. The man says that he was impressed by it and says that the other man was very lucky, as he thought it was an impossible task to find a good mother-in-law. At that moment, the man gets a call and then he says that he was very scared of who was calling him. He says it was his former mother-in-law and then the other man says he could take the call. The man then stands up and answers his mother-in-law's call. He asks her what she would like and then she tells her that she had a lot of things to do at her house and that she needed to buy some loaves of bread. She asks if the man could come to the bakery to buy for her and the man says yes. He asks her if she'd like anything else and she says she had something to ask for him. She says she was very busy at the time, but that she and her daughter would want to go to the sauna later. She says that her daughter wasn't feeling well at the time, but that she would want to go to the sauna and asks if the man could take them there. The man says yes and that he did everything to please his wife and mother-in-law. The lady says that she was very grateful for what the man was doing and says that she loved him very much. At this point, the man asked his mother-in-law if she could pass the phone to his wife, but she said she wasn't feeling well. She says that her daughter was taking a bath and that he could talk to her later. The man tells his mother-in-law to stop lying because he was seeing his wife with another man. She gets very scared by that and asks what he was talking about. He told her that he already knew everything that was going on and that if she wanted to know more about it, she could ask her daughter. He says he was very disappointed in them and then hangs up the phone. He walks back to the other man and the other man asks if he had managed to settle matters with his mother-in-law. The man says he wanted to make something clear with his new friend and says that was his ex-mother-in-law. He says he never wanted to have any kind of relationship with her or her daughter again. The other man says he couldn't believe it was happening, because she was just a self-interested person, because they weren't together anymore. The man agrees and says that all the women were like that. The other man then asks the man if he had been married previously. The man says yes and that he was married to a woman for a long time, but that he ended up being cheated on by her and she preferred to be with another man. The other man says that he was very sad to hear that and then the man shows him the wedding ring he wore. At that moment, the woman gets a call and the other man says it was her mother calling. She said she wouldn't answer the call, but the man says it seemed like something important and that she should take it. She says she wouldn't answer, but the other man insists that he wanted her to answer because it could be something important, but she said it was nothing and that she would call her mother later. She then answers the phone and she asked her what her mother wanted to talk to her. The lady says that she had spoken to the woman's husband and that something was wrong. She says her daughter should come home at that time, but the woman says she couldn't talk and that she would call her mother later. The lady says she was just warning her daughter, but the woman hangs up the phone. The man then says that he didn't want to stay there anymore, so he leaves. The other man tries to say goodbye, but the man doesn't say goodbye to him, which leaves the other man confused. The woman was then leaving, but the man tells her to stay. She then tells him to leave her alone and goes after the man. The man was then leaving, but at this moment, the woman's mother appears. The lady then asks what the man was doing there. The man says that he did everything for them, but that they had treated him that way. At that moment, the other man appears and asks what they were talking about, as he had heard that they were married. The lady says that she was very surprised that the other man was there, but the other man says that he was also surprised by what was happening. The man then tells the other man that the woman he had been disappointed with was the one over there. The other man asks if that was true and if he was being deceived. The woman tells him she didn't care what he thought and tells him to leave. The other man then becomes furious at the situation and says that they should leave their house and never come back. But the lady says that they were very nervous and that she was going to prepare something for them to drink. When they enter the house, the woman tells the man that she was sorry for what she had done. The man says that he would never speak to the woman again and that he wanted her to do the same to him. He said he knew she was with this man only out of interest that she could be with him. She said she wanted to be by his side because she loved him very much, but he said that was a lie and that he never wanted to be by her side again. He said he didn't believe a word the woman said anymore and then walked away. She tries to ask him to come back, but he doesn't. At that moment, the lady appears and asks if her daughter had managed to resolve the situation, but she said no and that the man had left. The lady then wonders about what they would do now about the money. The woman says it was her mother's fault and she shouldn't have listened to her. The lady says that they would need someone else to pay their bills and runs after her daughter.